on the ground, and Sanders is still going in Steelers territory. The Pittsburgh native, Miles Sanders, takes it all the way with his mom. And steps into it. Pass is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Vikings win it!
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Turf Talk. Of course, this is a very special edition. Not only are we here on a Monday evening, but I am accompanied by a very special guest, my man, Matt McGinty. You guys may know him as Gint. He is co-host of the Faithful Fanatics, which is also found on our platform, DSM Media. Also, Gint is one of the co-founders of DSM Media, and we are very glad to have you a part of this show today, Gint. Finally get to talk just strictly football with you. It's usually basketball, football across the board. So today we'll lock in on the NFL. But how was your Thanksgiving weekend, man?
It's good, man. Busy weekend working in the retail industry, Black Friday. It was just overall super busy time, but it was good. Good Thanksgiving. And then yesterday was a good day of football. How about yourself?
Yeah. Aside from the actual, Philadelphia game yesterday, everything was great. I went back to Maryland, got with some old friends, had a few drinks, caught up on everything. I got to watch Duke. That was one pleasantry of the weekend. Got to watch them move up to number one by beating Gonzaga. But aside from that, Sixers lost, Eagles lost. And then the Union did take care of business. They're headed to the Eastern Conference Finals, so that's pretty awesome. Awesome stuff by the Philadelphia Union there. Before we get started here, we are going to get into the Giants and Eagles. Obviously, tough loss for the Philadelphia Eagles. There's not much more you can really say about it to give the idea of what happened in that game. And then of course we're going to finish off with the Washington Football Team versus Seahawks preview tonight. Which actually has kind of big implications for the Eagles at this point after losing that game yesterday. Before we jump in, I do want to make sure everybody, if you're not following Gint on Twitter yet, make sure you're following Gint at Matt_McGinty. If you're not following myself, Scotty, make sure you're following me at Scotty Drown. And then, of course, if you're not following DSM Media, that's what this is all about. Make sure you're following DSM Media at DSM_media. Let's go ahead. Let's dive into this. Again, before we get into it, was there any other major takeaways around the NFL? I know we're going to talk mostly Eagles, Giants today, but, obviously the Rams have dropped, I believe, 3 in a row. Who else played? Oh, there was a big game with the Buccaneers and the Colts yesterday. That was a very entertaining game. Did you have any takeaways from the NFL weekend aside from the Eagles and Giants game?
Yeah, the slate was pretty kind of weird yesterday. There was a lot of teams that had games that would kind of put themselves in a good position in the wild card race. Like the Colts had a chance. And then you look at Carolina, could have kind of forced himself back into the picture a little bit. And there was a bunch of games like the Vikings and 49ers was another example of that. A lot of teams had big weeks and a lot of teams flopped. Like even the Titans had a chance to take a step and jump up higher in the AFC rankings. They had a dud. And then the Patriots are now 8-4. There was a lot of just solid games across the board yesterday.
Yeah, I thought the same, and that was another one I forgot to mention, that Titans and New England game, because that had major implications in the AFC. I mean, the Patriots really took a solid step forward by blowing them out, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was 36-13, I'm pretty sure is what it ended up being.
36-13, so that's a huge win for Mac Jones and company. The New England Patriots have looked really good lately. I believe that's, 5 or 6 in a row now. Let me just check these comments before we dig into the Eagles. Adam, thanks for checking in. What's up, man? I know you're bummed out about that Eagles loss. We're about to dig into him, man. Don't worry. Rager Butterfingers. He's a lot more than Butterfingers, that's for sure. What's up, Jason? Thank you for tuning in, man. You got to bring me on this show soon. Yeah, if you were free tonight, you could have hopped on with us. I didn't even realize, man. But we will get you on the show for sure soon, Jason. I stand Jalen Rager. Dylan's out sick tonight, but he can't help but stand Jalen Rager right now. But all right, again, let's get to the good stuff here. We're going to dive into this Eagles-Giants recap. The Eagles lost this game 13-7. You put up 7 points against the New York Giants. This is a bad Giants football team. I believe they came into the game 3-7, or they may be 4-7 at this point. Initial takeaways from this game, initial thoughts. I know everybody wants to dive into blame. We'll get to blame. What were just your initial takeaways from the offense, the defense, everything all around for the Eagles yesterday?
So the Eagles had started to build an identity behind the offensive line and just pounding the rock in between the tackles, and they weren't that yesterday. And I think we figured out what Jalen Hurts is without a run game available. And what you learned was he's not a guy that's going to be able to sit in the pocket and win you a game, which I think we kind of figured at this point in his career he wasn't really that guy yet. But yesterday was stuck out like a sore thumb to that take. I think they also missed Jordan Howard a ton yesterday in terms of, like I said, running the ball in between the tackles. The only one that was doing it was Jalen Hurts. Miles Sanders is not a part of this team's run game, it seems, with these coaches. It just seems different when he's there. But other than that, like, I know we'll get into Reagor. Reagor had the same amount of targets, I think, as Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert combined, I read.
Yeah.
Your leading receiver, I believe, was Kenny Gainwell. And I believe his first pass caught yesterday was in the fourth quarter. So just overall, the offense was abysmal, horrible in every other term you could say. The defense didn't game plan well, but they played okay. With a beat-up secondary the Giants had, the offense was such a letdown yesterday. I can't stress it enough.
Yeah, and, just thinking about the major opportunity that the Eagles had yesterday to get to 500, to basically move up in the rankings. We saw teams fall yesterday, which allowed the Eagles to have a chance to move up as far as, getting closer to the playoffs, which, yesterday is just one of those games. It's like as soon as we started building hope and expectations for this team, they suck it right out of you, like the life right out of you. Like that is a game that makes me not want to see them in the playoffs. Like that, I don't want to go out on national television in the playoffs and get embarrassed like that. Like that's not even worth it for me. You know what I mean? Like that was a struggle to watch, to get through that game. It's funny. You mentioned you mentioned quite a few things that I had written down here, but specifically the Reagor getting 7 targets, Goddard and Smith combining for 7 targets. Literally have that written down here. How does that happen? You know what I mean? Like I don't understand. I even had it up here, why Reagor over Smith, Goddard, and Watkins? Like I don't understand again. Is that like a coaching thing? Do you think that this is Jalen Hurts and his reads? Like what is this?
I think it's a mix of everything. I think it's almost like when you're playing basketball and you leave a guy wide open because he can't make a shot. They're fine with playing Jalen Reagor one-on-one because the targets that are going to go there aren't going to be completed. And they were, like I said, a depleted secondary yesterday. They had no problems with throwing bodies at Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert and saying, okay, first-round pick Jalen Reagor, you beat us. Instead, he got beaten over the head with a football twice on drives that would have won us the game. Now, even if we win that game yesterday, the conversation should not have been all positive. I mean, if you find a way to win, you're always happy, but we didn't. And Jalen Reagor was a huge part of that, to say the least.
Yeah, and it was painful. And, on those plays, it's like you said, they are just leaving him in one-on-one situations. They're saying, beat us. And, he's obviously not making the play, but do you blame Hurts for going that route? Like, is that a fault of Hurts to an extent? Or is that just him trusting his teammate? Like, does he have to make that throw or in those situations?
So it's kind of a mix of both because if he's open, you have to throw him the ball. He's a wide receiver. He's a guy you spent a first-round draft pick on. But at the end of the game, and Dylan's lighting up the comments with it,
yeah,
you got to be looking for your guys. You have to. Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert need to be your guys because Jalen Reagor's clearly not your guy. As you could tell, like I mentioned, he got hit in the head with the ball and dropped one on the 1-yard line. So I don't want to blame Jalen Hurts for throwing the ball to a first-round draft pick.
Yeah. And the other side of that whole conversation is the other guy that we mentioned there is Jalen Hurts. And I know everybody was talking about Jalen Reagor, and I want to get back to Jalen Reagor, but I want to start with Hurts here. If Hurts, if Jalen Reagor makes those 2 catches, if Ward makes that touchdown catch, this game is totally different. I get it. You know what I mean? But there's a whole other side to that conversation, right? Again, like the 3 interceptions don't just go away. Like the 3 interceptions are the reason that we were in that situation. You talk about the right before the halftime, that interception. I mean, the other ones, they're like, you're struggling on offense, you're forcing it, trying to play hero ball. The third one, it's like, come on, like what are we doing here? I would have rather you just kick the field goal than us take a shot in that sense. And that's sad when you can't trust your quarterback just to, if nothing's there, throw it out of bounds. It's very simple in that situation. I really don't understand forcing the ball to a 5'6" Boston Scott, right?
100%. And that's just leaving points on the board. And that's, I want to say growing pains, but you're getting to the point where you're almost, now we're close to 17 starts in the NFL. Yeah. I don't even know what we're at this point, but those are mistakes you can't make when you're a high school quarterback, let alone a starting quarterback in the NFL. But the fact of the matter is this, again, the blame word's really tough for how bad everyone was yesterday. But yeah, I read a stat that Jalen Hurts was 3 of 11 with 2 interceptions of passes over 10 yards. Your QB1 can't struggle that bad with throwing the ball over 10 yards. That's the fact of the matter. And he, like you said, he left some points on the board. The Giants didn't play well yesterday, and he couldn't get us a W. So, again, QB1 can't struggle that bad down the field.
Yeah, I there's nothing I can say to refute that. Like that's just an insane stat. And he's struggled in the passing game most of this season. Like it's not like some hidden lot. I'm looking at this game. You mentioned that you don't think the Giants played a very good game. I don't think they did either. Would you say that Daniel Jones played a good game? Like, did he played clean, like had 202 yards, 1 touchdown pass, no interceptions, 9 carries, 30 yards on the ground. Like, would you say that Daniel Jones had like a good game yesterday against the Eagles?
He was just like he didn't lose them the game, and that's half the battle against a bad team like the Eagles were yesterday. You just can't lose your team the game. And like we mentioned, Jalen Hurts 3 interceptions. That's losing your team a game. And again, that's not the only blame, but 202 yards, a touchdown pass, it's not jumping off the paper as an A+ start, but it was enough to get the job done all in all.
Yeah, and that's more passing yards in a game than Jalen Hurts has had in his last 5 starts. 202 yards. That would be his 5th highest yarding outing on the year as far as Jalen Hurts in the passing game. And I think that's quite astounding when we look at that game yesterday. I don't think that Daniel Jones played out of his mind. He played clean. 19 for 30 from the field. That's not a great game by a quarterback, and still that would be a top 5 passing game for Jalen Hurts this season. That's insane to look at. Obviously, you can't take away Jalen Hurts' running ability. But when you have the safety of the New York Giants, I forget his first name. His last name was Love. He said they came into the game plan saying, make Jalen Hurts beat us by passing. And that's when you start to have issues as an offense, as a team. My other question to you. So you mentioned losing the identity kind of when Miles Sanders steps into this rotation. You mentioned, kind of even Nick Sirianni. I really want your thoughts on how he handled this whole game plan, this whole situation with the offense yesterday. Did you feel like they abandoned the run a little too much yesterday? What are your thoughts on that?
So I actually had this written down. In the first half, the Eagles had 19 runs to 18 passes, which is a 50-50 game. You're at a balance that Eagles fans have kind of wanted. In the second half, it was 18 runs to 8 passes before the final drive. So to say he abandoned the run, I don't think is correct. Now, the runs that were happening, I wouldn't outside the tackles, not what we've been doing.
Yeah.
So that might be a different story. But the Eagles didn't abandon the run yesterday. We just saw what Jalen Hurts having to throw the ball that many times kind of speaks. He can't win a game throwing the ball 30 times, it seems. And again, he's early. It's growing pains. But I was honestly amazed that was a stat, that it was 18-8 in the second half before that final drive. So I don't really know if he got away from the run as much as – the Kelsey injury didn't help anything either. That was a horrible timing thing. But he still came back in and was moving people all over the place. Nate Herbig with the worst hole, I should say. It like killed my vibe. I literally had the tweet ready for Boston Scott as he was running. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to tweet it. He owns New York. Next thing you know, it gets called back. But
he ruined that. Yeah.
I don't think Sirianni, he didn't call a good game, but I don't think he abandoned the run, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess that the caveat question to that question would be, why does the run game look like that without Jordan Howard? Why is he so important as a guy that was just moved off the practice squad a few weeks ago? Like, does that make sense to you at all?
No, and I mean, it didn't, like, when we watched him play, it didn't make sense that he was on the practice squad because he came in and was doing stuff that, again, Miles Sanders seems to not be able to do for this coaching staff. So it's such a weird philosophy because Miles Sanders is a better running back than Jordan Howard. There's no one that's going to argue that statement. But for this regime, it just doesn't. It just seems like such a bad fit for some reason.
And you look at Miles Sanders from yesterday: 9 carries, 64 yards, 7.1 yards per carry. I mean, 7 yards per carry. I know it's only 9 carries, but like he was gashing them at certain points throughout the game, and it was like Boston Scott was getting the nod. Like I saw Boston Scott in the game for, most of the second half at least. And then you even mentioned Gainwell getting thrown into the mix. All of a sudden he's the leading receiver for the team. You know what I mean? Like, why can't Miles Sanders get any love in this offense? I don't understand it. He's one of their best playmakers on offense.
That's what I'm saying. Why can't we just see a game where he runs the ball 15 times? And if he runs for 15 yards and 15 attempts for 76 yards, you say, oh, well, it didn't work. But he's getting 7 yards a carry. He got the same amount of yards that Boston Scott did on 6 less carries. So I just really – there's some type of disconnect there. It has to be. I know we saw the reports. I forget what game it was, but he was texting Nick Sirianni after the game, apparently all pumped up, talking about how good of a game he called. And I just feel like there has to be a disconnect somewhere. It doesn't make sense to me.
Like, why does that even have to be reported? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Why is that an important report to even put out there? You know what I mean? So that obviously shows that there's something there. And then, my other question about the running back situation in that game, do you think that Sirianni maybe got a little too caught up in the Boston Scott owns New York Giants train? Like, this is something that I've talked about all season with Sirianni. It's like something with the fans and the T-shirts and like trying to feed into like any type of movement that's going on in like the Twitter universe. It feels like all week up into the game, we're like, yeah, Boston Scott owns New York Giants. Like, obviously he's had some great games against them, but ideally he's not a better running back than Miles Sanders. Like, he should not be dominating the workload against his team, regardless of how he's done in the past. The stuff that he's done in the past has been in relief. When somebody's been injured, or maybe it's a big play out of nowhere when he's just in the game randomly. But when you put Boston Scott in the game the whole time, it kind of gets predictable at an extent when he runs the football. That's why you like to bring him in, because he's like that spark plug, similar to Darren Sproles of the past, right? Darren Sproles wasn't an every down back. So I don't understand why Boston Scott, was in for series at a time yesterday. It was kind of ridiculous. And it just makes me think that Sirianni is like trying to feed into what the fans want once again, similar to that Las Vegas game where, the fans were chanting like run the football, and he like does it again, and it's just corny. Like what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that Sirianni like gets into his own head a little bit too much?
100%. You try to please a fan base that he probably in his back of his mind definitely thinks, wow, these guys probably hate me after this one. But dude, Nick Sirianni just screams like the brother-in-law that doesn't watch football but comes to the events in like a T-shirt that is a football T-shirt and doesn't really know what he's talking about. So he just tries to tag along with the T-shirts at practice, and like you said, the trademark. Oh, Boston Scott, we got to get Boston Scott in the end zone because the Philly fans will love it. Meanwhile, I was the one that was about to tweet it out as he was about to get in the end zone. But I agree with you. And again, the term here just seems to be makes no sense at the end of the day. Boston Scott runs between the tackles a little bit better than Miles Sanders. Yeah. But that's where the coaching staff has to get creative. You got to draw up a play. you got to draw plays for your best playmakers, which we didn't do yesterday, considering, like we said, option 1, Devonta Smith, and option 2, Dallas Goedert, the same amount of targets as option what should be 94, Jalen Reagor. And then your backup running back gets more touches than your what I think would be RB1.
And, you mentioned something in there, just with like the formations of the quarterback and the running backs and what the Eagles do with their entire offense. And it's like, is this the most, just like, I don't want to say bland, but simple? Like, do they just keep it so simple on offense? And is it like something with Jalen Hurts? I'm wondering, why can't we have 2 running backs in the backfield at one time? Like, other teams do that. Like, if we like Boston Scott, like I would agree at this point after we see Jalen Reagor, the Greg Wards of the world, the J Jaws, I would go as far to say that Boston Scott is in the top 5 of weapons that you might want to use on offense in that game. You look at Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders, and then I may go Boston Scott. I'm not even Quez Watkins. I'll go Quez Watkins, Boston Scott. Top 5 in guys I would want to get the ball in their hands.
But and we talk about Sirianni always wants to. He's the coach that was going to put his players in a position to win. And
right.
How do you do that? Well, you do that by putting your best players around your quarterback. And like we meant, I think you were on Monday when we mentioned the running back room has more talent than the wide receiver room. So you have to use all these running backs if you have them on the roster. Like the Jordan Howard getting activated from the practice squad. He shouldn't be back on the practice squad after what he did for us. The wide receiver room should all be on the practice squad besides Devonta Smith. So you have to use these running backs, and he kind of did yesterday. I mean, again, Kenny Gainwell coming in with a minute left in the game and having the most receptions and yards is laughable, but he's not. Sirianni called a bad game in that essence yesterday for sure.
Yeah, I think just as far as how he mixed it up, it just was not. It was not great. And even Gainwell, as far as wide receivers, like give him a shot, put him in the slot, like let him try something on offense. Like we just got to try something new. We can't keep on beating our heads against the wall. I would like to see Gainwell split out wide sometimes. Like just try something new. John Hightower, bring him up. He actually had a few big plays last season. He was at least able to get open at times. He's fast. Like
100%.
Give him a shot.
The disconnect between him and Wentz was a real thing last year, but like you said, he's an option over the top. He always was. Yeah. I mean, did he ever come down with the ball? Not a ton, but at this point, like you got to try something different than Jalen Reagor and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. It's the same thing.
I would love to know if Hightower had a better season than Reagor last year. I don't think he did, but I would love to just look at that really quick. Yeah, man, the Reagor thing is the next thing I wanted to get to before we move on from the Eagles and Giants today. What do we do with Reagor? I know people are saying cut him. You really can't cut him. I mean, that's just dumb. Really, it would be a sunken cost. You may as well try to get something out of him, put him in a spot to be successful. But what is that spot again? Like for Reagor to be
successful? Howie's never going to cut him because Justin Jefferson was the next pick, and he can't. Like 2 years later from that, while Justin Jefferson is catching for 190 million yards and 4 touchdowns a week, while Jalen Reagor gets hit in the head twice with the ball, he'll never do that to himself. He'll never look that stupid.
Right.
But it's time to move on. He's got to lose field time.
Yeah.
You got to, like you said, start throwing things creative. Split Kenny Gainwell out there. Let Quez Watkins run end arounds every single play for all I care. I mean, dude, even like J-Jaw the last 2 weeks, he's the first down, like something different. And I know like that's such a far-fetched thing, but I mean, what also really is coming back to fruition is the Eagles moved Zach Ertz. And I mean, if you win that game, you're really talking like this team might be able to sneak into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And are we missing another target? Like we said, Zach Ertz was. No, don't get me wrong. The Eagles are ready to move on from Ertz, ready to go all in on Goddard, which led to 1 reception for 0 yards in a game. But the Eagles are just lacking targets. And I feel like it's been a thing for the longest time.
Yeah.
It really hasn't. The amount of capital we spend on targets, and guys just can't get open. And the guys that get open, the quarterback is staring on the other side of the field. And we didn't even mention that about Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Boy, does he stare down some targets, man.
Yeah, so I guess, you touched on so much there. I'm going to touch on the Ertz and the Goddard thing, and then we can move back to the Jalen Hurts thing as well. But the Ertz thing, you may be onto something there. What exactly was the worth in trading him midseason? I mean, unless he was wanting out, if he was wanting more playing time, I didn't read into all of that to know if that was the case. But I get you want to go all in on Goddard. You could have done that. You could have done that with Ertz here. Like, it's not like it changed the money that much by trading him and cap relief or anything like that. So, as far as Ertz, it would be nice. It's what we're begging for right now is a veteran receiver. And he would at least bring some experience, a guy who can create space, get open, and be a safety valve for his quarterback. My only fear, man, is that Hurts. I don't know if he would find him. I really don't know. That's one thing. Everybody would always try to knock Wentz, but one thing he was good at was finding the tight end, hit in the middle of the field. And it's something that Hurts really. I thought he was going to be good at it. I thought it would be used as a safety valve for him. He doesn't, man. I know Goddard is close to the top of the team in receptions and yards, but it doesn't speak for as much opportunities as they've had on offense in order to have some big plays. As far as Hurts reading the field, what do you think is his biggest weakness right now? Like, when you look at that game from Hurts, there was a lot of things that went wrong. But what do you think would be his biggest weakness? Like, leaving the pocket too early, not reading the field, not processing reads, inaccuracy, passing strength.
He looked like a deer in headlights in the pocket yesterday.
Yeah.
But also, what doesn't help is he rarely throws the ball in the middle of the field, it seems. But when you don't establish a run game in between the tackles, there's no play action available. There's no action towards the middle of the field that you can really run. But to touch on your point about Goddard and Ertz, like when Wentz was here and he went through his stand of being really good, it seemed like Ertz was always that guy, like 3rd and 8, Ertz first down, like 2nd and 12, Ertz gets 9 yards. Like, and we'd love to have that feeling with Goddard, and it's just not there. And it could be from lack of weapons or the Goddard's getting a lot of attention, which always could be a thing. But it just seemed like Ertz was always open, and we knocked Wentz for throwing him the ball too much. I wish at this point Hurts would huck the ball at Goddard 45 times a game rather than hit Jalen Reagor in the back of the head. So it's such a tough predicament with how to really – don't get me wrong, Jalen Hurts was really bad yesterday, but it's coming to fruition again. It's like, how do we grade this guy when he's hitting – like, again, I keep bringing up, but he hit a dude in the helmet yesterday, and he didn't catch the ball. He pegged him in the hands as time expired. So, yeah, he missed Devonta Smith, and he wasn't good all game, but if Reagor catches that ball, we might be having a different conversation about the last play at least. That's at the end of the day what I kind of feel about it.
And it does, those plays at the end, it kind of, for a young quarterback, right, like a second-year quarterback in Jalen Hurts and however many starts he's had so far, comes out, leads the Eagles to a comeback win against a division rival in a moment where you can really take a big step towards the playoffs. The narrative would have been completely different. Now, do I think it should have been in reality in the grand scheme of things? No, I don't. I don't think that it should have been much different considering he did have 3 turnovers. That's kind of a nail in the coffin for a team when your quarterback turns the ball over like that. But with that being said, I would understand why the narrative would change. And, it becomes impossible to grade him. We have no clue what Howie and Jeff Lurie are thinking. And ultimately, those maniacs are going to be the ones that are going to make the decision regardless. And they obviously don't think like normal human beings, normal people that watch football. They obviously are not on the same page, right? Like, so I have no clue. Like, as far as what I'm thinking compared to what they're thinking, it's hard for me to even guess at what they're going to do next. Because Jalen Hurts is impossible to grade right now because, once again, we're in the same situation where we got a question mark at the coaching staff. We don't know if they're able to develop players, put players in the right positions. Similar to what we said about Doug Peterson. We're running a very simple offense that doesn't necessarily cater to the quarterback or the players within the offense. Same thing that we said about Doug Peterson. And then, of course, we still have Howie Roseman here making the decisions. So it just seems like we're going on a rerun once again, and it doesn't really matter if Jalen Hurts is good or not, because we won't really find out in the sense, because we won't be able to put him in the right situations.
That's really well said. There's not really any other way to say it.
It's insane, man. My last question for you with Jalen Reagor, or just the wide receiver room in general. Obviously, we're once again in shambles. And this is something I was talking to my girlfriend earlier about. We drafted J-Jaw, 2-3 seasons ago, whatever. He was a third-round pick. Drafted Jalen Reagor in the first round. If these guys could just be, like, serviceable wide receivers, like if J-Jaw could just be, like, a go-up-and-get-it wide receiver, maybe every once in a while he just does something good. And then maybe Jalen Reagor is just, like, your spark plug on offense. We use him on end-around screens. He gets open. He catches the ball out of the slot, that type of player. But no, these guys are just, like, complete garbage. And so, like, look what this wide receiver room has turned into once again compared to what it could be if the right decisions were made, if the players were developed correctly. And so, when we look at this wide receiver room, there's one guy that – and I hate that we have to even go back to last season for anything. Travis Fulgham. It was our leading receiver last year, and this guy was cut.
It makes no sense. And I know I said it 1,000 times, but Travis Fulgham had a 5-game stretch where he looked really good. And don't get me wrong, that's a small sample size, but it's much bigger than 0, like these other two. Dude, I just had to bring up J-Jaw catching 2 passes as like a viable factor. Maybe he can get some field time. Like that explains everything you need to know about this wide receiver room. But like, where is Travis? Like you mentioned too, John Hightower. Like, why don't you try something different? And I know we were just in a predicament where maybe if you win that game, we turn some heads. You have this weak schedule, you make the playoffs. But like, I'm at the point where development is 50,000 times more important now than trying to go play Green Bay in the first round of the playoffs. Like, I'm so done with that whole wide receiver group. Like Devonta Smith should go hang out with other people. Go hang out with the cornerbacks. Like they're cool. These wide receivers are terrible. Like they're so bad.
They are. They're terrible, and it's sad because we just got somebody in Devonta Smith, which has caused some people to kind of recant their thoughts on Howie Roseman. Dude, it was the 10th pick in the draft. It is really hard to screw that up. Like
you cannot mess that up. It was, which I felt like there was a chance he was going to.
We were worried that he would. Like
he hit this one, obviously.
Yeah, that's not a calling card, man. And I agree. Like, why not? What's Travis Fulgham doing right now? Like, call him up. He even said a few weeks ago he hopes that it wasn't his last game he's ever played at the Link. Like, I'll never understand why they cut him. But one last question regarding that wide receiver spot. How would you address that in the offseason? Would you try to go out and get a vet? Would you be willing to go and use draft capital on that? What would be your move towards addressing that wide receiver room?
I'm definitely not using early draft capital for the 3rd season in a row.
Yeah.
I don't think Howie would even be done. Like, you got to go get a vet. And there's a lot of guys out there that aren't getting touches that people think are still, like, for example, a lot of people mention Allen Robinson. I think that would be a great fit. Like, you have to, like, somebody of that caliber that even if they're on, like, the little bit of a decline, you need something. Like somebody. And Allen Robinson's a good name. I'm not sure all the names. I know Courtland Sutton just got signed, so he was another name that was popping up. But I'm not sure all the names. But, yeah, I would definitely – you have to go get something. If you come back with the same wide receiver room, I'm probably done at that point.
Deshaun Jackson.
Deshaun Jackson, Jordan Matthews.
Oh, my God. Don't even talk about it because I mean it might happen for all we know. I know there's some big names out there, but it's hard to say who would really want to come to Philadelphia right now. I know like the Chris Godwins of the world, which I think he's another guy. Allen Robinson would be perfect. I think that is kind of like the realistic target, just because he's having kind of a down season with that quarterback situation they got in Chicago. So he would be a nice one. I think Mike Williams, he's going to be kind of expensive, I feel like. I really liked him coming out of Clemson. And he's a guy that I still think has a little bit more room if he can stay healthy. I'm going to have to look up some of the lower market guys.
Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, Devontae Adams, Will Fuller, Jameson Crowder, Juju, AJ Green, Mike Williams, Antonio Brown, who I heard we didn't need. Odell, another guy we didn't need. Christian Kirk, there's names there. There's names of guys that are in a different 5 tiers than Jay Jaw and Jalen Reagor. So,
and it's sad, any one of those guys on that list that short list there, I would take them in a heartbeat as my wide receiver 2, right beside Devontae Smith. I mean, it's insane.
And it stems back to I don't want OBJ. Well, OBJ caught a 57-yard touchdown last night. I don't know if you guys saw that one, but and I don't know. There's attitude problems, but at this point, I'd much rather attitude problems than getting hit in the back of the head on a game.
I'll take attitude problems over J-Jaw. Get out of my face.
Maybe J-Jaw needs an attitude problem.
That's what I'm saying. Get a chip on your shoulder, dude. Somebody tell him that he's close to getting cut or something. Does he feel like he has
These guys seem so complacent with just making the roster.
Right? It's I was a high draft pick. I know I'm in here. It makes zero sense to me, Gint. So one last thing before we move on. The Eagles, Nick Sirianni came out and said today that Jalen Hurts does have an ankle injury, a sore ankle. Said he's up in the air about, his capability of playing up in New York again against the New York Jets, or I should say New Jersey. As we go into this game against the Jets, what are your thoughts if Gardner Minshew makes his first start of the season this upcoming game?
They'll light the Jets up and win by 21. It's so perfect for the book that Gardner Minshew goes off, and then all of a sudden it's the debate on who starts between the two of them. It's so poetic. It's ridiculous, Scotty. If Gardner Minshew plays on Sunday, the Eagles win by more than 3 touchdowns. I guarantee it. I really do. And Jalen Reagor will score 2 touchdowns. Jay Jones will get a 57-yard catch. It'll be this guy unlocks our wide receivers. God.
Bro, I think, there's something that he would do that I think it would spark exactly what you're saying, exactly what Adam's saying here, Minshew mania. The guy, he's not the greatest, he doesn't have the greatest arm, but he is pretty accurate quarterback. He can make all the intermediate throws, and he can still make some decent plays with his legs. He doesn't bring that excitement factor with his legs, obviously, like Jalen Hurts, but if he did something just as simple as going to Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, very often, just always looking their way on every passing play, he could have a big game, bro. And I swear that's going to spark this entire conversation, because there's already been people saying, well, just put Minshew in. Let's see. You know what I mean? Let's see it. And
100%.
Part of me does feel that, because I would like to just see a prototypical quarterback in this offense, with a solid arm, a good passer in this offense. And I would love to see if it makes Sirianni look like a genius. Maybe he's just not coaching to Jalen Hurts' strengths, and obviously Jalen Hurts' strengths aren't as a passer, but he made Phillip Rivers look pretty good.
Yeah.
I know there was Frank Wright there as well, which maybe that's the big part of it, but I wonder what this offense looks like with a pocket passing type of quarterback. And I know Gardner Minshew isn't that, so that's why I'm not as much on that train, because it's not changing as much. I think I don't want to call him a limited Hurts, because I don't know. I haven't seen enough Minshew games to really speak on him that far.
I really hope that it doesn't come down to that Sunday. I really don't, because they will win. They will win by 3 touchdowns.
They will.
I just have the horrible feeling of that. One thing I do want to say before we wrap up the Eagles is, because I want to end on a positive. Dude, Avonte Maddox, they extended him, man. He's been in the slot, has been everything that a lot of people thought he would be in the slot. He just wasn't an outside corner, but I wanted to end on something positive. He's been good all season. So it's a good little way to end the Eagles.
Yeah, no. I thought that's a great point. You mentioned Avonte Maddox, which was somebody, you know, coming out of last season, we were kind of like, is this guy, you know, going to be here long term? Like, is he worth an extension? He came out, played really well early. They got him back to his natural position in the slot, and he's had some great success, which that's what we need to see. Because, you know, I look at a guy like Steven Nelson. I know he's been kind of up and down this season. Not a guy that I'm sure that we're going to really bring back. I think they may go the young route, or they may attempt to hit free agency again in that position. But you know, as far as locking up the slot position, and then hopefully, you know, Slay, we'll see how everything works out this offseason.
Horrible DPI called on Steven Nelson yesterday, which
yes,
the touchdown.
And you know, that's like a side note, man. It's so painful watching the referees and the reffing of these games. I don't know if you notice it. Maybe I'm just biased because I'm, you know, a Philly fan. I know you are too. Whenever you're watching any of these games, like the Sixers too, like why is it always like the clear calls like go against it? Like I don't understand it. It's like any other time these calls are just very simple, but like the refs overcomplicate things. Then we have to go and challenge something that we just shouldn't even have to challenge. Like it's always
Tyrese Maxey gets bludgeoned to the ground. There's like, what?
I don't understand it. You know, between the national media and the referees, I just don't understand it. But hopefully the Eagles, I guess hopefully they get back on track this week. I mean, the world will be upside down if they lose to the Jets, Zach Wilson. But we'll see if they can get back on track. I wanted to wrap up here. We definitely want to get out of here before the Sixers game. We definitely need to catch them, see if they can bounce back tonight. But Washington football team and the Seattle Seahawks tonight, not the biggest showdown in the world on Monday Night Football. You got the 3-7 Seattle Seahawks. They are a 1-point favorite over the Washington football team, who is 4-6 on the season. Which I don't know if that line's updated since we started here, but 1 point the last time I checked. Washington football team, they are second in the NFC East. They're looking for 3 wins in a row. I believe they're sitting at 4-6. So they would move technically ahead of us. They played one less game, so they would have one less loss if they were able to win tonight. Is there anything specific, you know, that pertains to, you know, as far as the Eagles situation? Like, are you hoping that the Washington football team loses so the Eagles can stay in it? Do you have like any sense of care in that at all? Like, have your expectations changed for the Eagles? Maybe, I guess, is a good question.
I wouldn't really say this game to me has really anything to do with the Eagles. It's more of just like a football fan base. I'd love to see what Russell Wilson does. A lot of rust last week. It seemed like they're pretty much in have to win mode to get into one of these wild card spots. So I'd love to see how he plays. I think Washington's defense, one, isn't as good as what we thought it was going to be coming into the season. Yeah. That's darn sure. They've been subpar. They're middle of the road pack, I'm pretty sure, in the NFL in terms of the pass defense and rush defense. So it'd be cool to see what DK and Tyler Lockett can do. But in terms of Eagles' demeanor in this game, really doesn't mean much to me at all.
Gotcha. And so are you out on the Eagles making the playoffs, or are you just simply kind of it doesn't matter, you'll kind of cross that road if it comes up again?
I think that's kind of where I'm at. Cross it if it comes again. They'll beat the Jets next week. I think no matter who plays, they'll beat the Jets next week. Yeah. We'll be talking like, I think we go into the bye the week after that. So we'll be like, this and this scenario, this and this. If the Vikings lose and this. Like, we'll get back to that. And
Jordan Howard back.
Yeah, my foot will be back in the door. I'll be talking about how who knows if they go to Green Bay. But, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Like you said.
I got you. One thing I wanted to do with you, I wanted to just read you 2 quarterback stats, for the season and just get your thoughts on each of them. So quarterback 1, 217 completions out of 328 attempts. 2,390 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Then quarterback 2 is 211 of 351, 2,435 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. If you looked at those stats blindly, which one of those quarterbacks would you take?
I mean, only reason I know who the first guy is. You're going to take the first guy, and Dylan can advocate to this one. I'm a big Taylor Heineke fan, so that's my first guy, and I would take the first guy. Obviously, I'd take Russell Wilson over Taylor Heineke, but dude,
no, that was Jalen Hurts' stats.
No way.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts was the second guy.
Oh, I didn't even I knew the first guy. I assumed you were just talking about both, but
no,
yeah, dude. As a passer, I wouldn't even say it's close. Truthfully, I wouldn't.
Isn't that crazy that we've gotten to that point?
I know Taylor Heineke has Scary Terry, who is another awesome person to watch in terms of just being a football fan.
Yeah.
But that's pretty crazy to me that the Old Dominion graduate is putting up better numbers than the guy that went to Alabama, then Oklahoma, two of the best football programs in the country.
You can't make that up, man. You can't. That's why I wanted to ask you that, because I do know that you're a Taylor Heineke fan, so I definitely wanted to get your thoughts on that. As far as Seattle, they're trying to avoid, you mentioned it, they're trying to kind of get that last chance at a playoff spot here, trying to avoid losing 3 in a row. What are the chances that Russell Wilson wants out this offseason?
That's where it gets really interesting for the Eagles, right? I mean,
yeah.
If one of these big name guys, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, wants out, he might. I think his time in Seattle is dwindling in terms of just the regime he was a part of when they were really good is all gone. The LOB days is done. So there's a chance now for the Philadelphia fans that think there's a dwindling hope he's here. I don't see that in any way, but I could see him definitely wanting to get out of Seattle at some point.
Two wild and crazy guys here. Thanks for checking in, Phil. No, that was actually going to be my follow-up question was if you did think that Russ would kind of want out of Seattle in the offseason, would you go after him if you're the Eagles? Would you sell the farm for Russ?
Everything twice.
And then the follow-up to that, do you think if Russ came to this team, he would make them closer to a contender or even a contender?
It would make them definitely a playoff team because, one, he brings traction as well for guys that we were naming earlier, the Allen Robinsons, the wide receivers that may be on quote-unquote a decline that want to play with a star-studded quarterback like Russell Wilson is. So he puts them in a much, much different tier than they're in now, in my opinion. I would love to see Nick Sirianni with a quarterback like that and to see if this offense really is like this unlockable offense that we just haven't seen yet because of Jalen Hurts' flaws.
Yeah. There's been stretches throughout this season where there's been a missed throw, and you're like, man, if he would have just made that throw, that might be a touchdown.
Like,
go ahead.
First part of the Chargers game. It's exactly like something that you're talking about, and that one just really sticks out to me. Just because I was there, and I was like, oh my god, this place would have went crazy.
Well, there's quite a few games that were kind of like that. The Chiefs, for instance, driving down the field and just completely missing Zach Ertz. You know what I mean? Like that was another one that was just like, a simple quarterback can make this.
Yeah. So I think the Eagles do. You would go all in on Russell Wilson, correct?
Yeah, I would send it for him. At this point, there's so many uncertainties around Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts could pray and wish that he would ever become the quarterback that Russell Wilson is. So, as far as that, like, I would do it. I would give us a chance. I think, coming around with the salary cap, we've already talked about, the receivers that they could go after. The offensive line is still there. I know it would depend heavily on Jason Kelce and what his future looks like, but he would definitely have a better offensive line than what he had in Seattle, and he plays pretty well there. So I would imagine he would play pretty good with the Eagles as well. Last thing for tonight, Gint, who wins, Washington football team or the Seattle Seahawks?
I'm going to take the Seahawks tonight. I think it's going to be close. They'll probably say 27-21, something like that. Seahawks are due for a win, and like I mentioned earlier, they're kind of in this must-win mode in terms of maybe trying to sneak in and grab a wild card spot, which with 7 losses, it's pretty unlikely. You'd have to almost run the table at this point, it seems.
Yeah.
And Washington's won 2 good ones in a row. They might be feeling themselves a little bit, even though, like I've mentioned earlier, I'm a big Taylor Heineke guy. But I also need 3 points out of Antonio Gibson and 6 out of Tyler Lockett. So take anything you can. That neither of them are going to do that. So
that's how it always goes, man. And I'm going against DK Metcalf in the league. I'm up by like 9 points, man. And I know he's gonna score
a 60-yard touchdown in the second play.
Yeah, he's gonna put me under. I know it's gonna happen. Washington football team. You have to wonder when that Chase Young injury is gonna kick in. I feel like tonight could be one of those nights. Russell Wilson is one of the more mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. Chase Young would be a huge help as far as containing him and keeping him in the pocket. At some point, I think all of this catches up to Washington football team. They're kind of just playing undermanned, but maybe they shut us up with this game, get this W against Seattle. Which I know Seattle's 3-7. They played a lot of games without Russell Wilson, so that's a completely different team. If they could get this W tonight, I would say that's a good step forward for the Washington football team, who I don't know about you, but I had kind of high expectations for them coming into this season. I thought their defense was going to – yeah, I did pick them to win the division as well. I didn't pick the Cowboys just because of that defense. I thought they would have like a top 3, top 5 defense in the NFL, and that has not come to fruition. But that's all I got for you tonight, Gint. I know we definitely want to get out of here and get to this Sixers game. That's about to tip off. Probably not in 4 minutes, probably more like 15 minutes. But before we get out of here, I definitely want to shout out our sponsor, Manscaped. Guys, right now, if you go to manscaped.com right now, Cyber Monday, you will get 25% off your entire order, and you will get free shipping as well. That is for Cyber Monday only, so make sure to head over there tonight. Let them know the DSM Media sent you. If you do not make it by the end of today, just make sure to check them out in the upcoming future. If you need to get some Christmas gifts, whatever it may be, DSM Media is sponsored by Manscaped. Make sure you use one of our codes from the DSM Media crew. If you want to use the Turf Talk code, it's going to be TURF20, TURF20, TURF20 at manscaped.com, and that will get you 20% off in free shipping. That's after the Cyber Monday sale. So try to get in there tonight if you can. Get that extra percentage off. But if not, we got you covered here at DSM Media. For myself, for Gint, make sure you find Gint on Twitter at Matt_McGinty. Thank you once again, Gint, for joining me tonight to do this NFL talk. It's always a pleasure having you, my man. For myself, Scotty, you can find me on Twitter at ScottyDrown. Gint, do you got any closing notes for me?
Yeah. We miss Dylan, obviously. I just wanted to ask him how the Cam Newton party came this weekend.
He's back. That's what we'll be saying about Dylan once he finally gets back on the show. My man's been sick. He's been down and out. That drunksgiving got to him. I think that's what happened to him over the weekend. He's got some allergies and stuff now. He's getting hit from all over. But hopefully we get Dylan back soon. We definitely need one of those rants. But for myself, for Gint, for DSM Media, thanks for tuning in, everybody, tonight. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. I believe Training in the AM should be back up at 8 a.m. tomorrow. And then I'm sure you guys will be doing a Faithful Fanatics tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then I should have my Scotty Talks NBA later on in the evening as well. Guys, make sure you're tapped into DSM Media. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Make sure you're sharing with all your friends. That's going to be it for us tonight, guys. Have a good one. Peace and go Birds.